Shouldn't be drowning on your own. And if you feel you're sinking, I will jump right over into cold, cold water for you. And although time may take us into different places, I will still be patient with you. And I hope you know I won't let go. I'll be your lifeline tonight. I won't let go. I'll be your lifeline tonight. 'Cause we all get lost sometimes, you know. It's how we learn and how we grow. And I wanna lay with you till I'm old. Oh, you shouldn't be fighting on your own. And if you feel you're sinking, I will jump right over into cold, cold water for you. And although time may take us into different places, I will still be patient with you. And I hope you know I won't let go. I won't let go. No, no, no. It's fine tonight. I won't let go. I'll be your lifeline tonight.
Setting from a rocking boat. I just wanna stay afloat. I'm all alone. And I hope that someone gonna take me home. Somewhere else and rest my soul. I need to know if you won't let go.
I won't let go. It's fine tonight. I'll be your lifeline tonight. I won't let go.
Good morning, everyone who is watching. Thanks for watching again, or I should say, actually, buongiorno, live from Milan. What you see behind me is the Duomo. For all of you who have ever been to Milan, or for those of you who have never been to Milan, you should go to it. We have a picture of the Duomo, which is the Dom, the big church here in Milan. So it looks actually pretty amazing here. Just sitting across of it. We thought, you know what, let's broadcast the webinar from somewhere else. So I'm right here in Milan. Thanks again for watching. Again, before we get started today, practical items for today. If you have certain problems or issues with the webinar connection, just try to refresh the browser. It should help. Also, we have our colleagues in Amsterdam to answer your questions right away using the chat window. So if you have any questions during the webinar, please use the chat window. At the end of the webinar, I'm going to scroll through the questions which are still open to see if I can answer them today. Okay, so let's get started. Let's take some pretty amazing numbers again. Let me just get that slide. Our teams of startups and coaches in Startup Launch Class have over 580 customer interviews. And this is only week 6, so that's pretty amazing. I've done over 39 experiments, which led to 8 pivots, so changes in the business model, important changes in the business model. For example, a change in customer segment, which led to over 11 leads and 4 committed deals in one startup. So that is an amazing job, guys. Even Mr. Orange here is saying good job there. Keep up that pace again. Keep up discovering your business model, actually validating your business model. So keep up with that. Okay, let's take a quick look at the agenda for today. Today we're going to discuss the left side of the business model canvas, not the entire left side though. We're going to look at two key building blocks of the business model, which are your key resources and your key activities. So what is it actually that creates or makes your value proposition even possible? We're going to have a deep dive into those two building blocks today. After that, we're also going to discuss sales as an entrepreneur, which is not a key building block of your business model canvas, of course, or of your business model. But in the end, of course, especially as a young founder, as an entrepreneur, it is about creating sales. So that's why I want to discuss sales as an entrepreneur today as well. So these are the building blocks and the topics we have been discussing for the last couple of weeks. So actually the right side of your business model canvas, from your customer segments to creating your value proposition, how to reach out to them, which channels to use, and of course, which leads hopefully to certain revenue streams. To express there is that don't see it as a linear approach, right? When you try to create and discover and actually just design your business model. Don't see it as, okay, I have been working on my customer segments, I've ran certain experiments, check, I've done it, I've created my customer segments, or I validated them, and then I move on to my value proposition. I've done certain experiments, check that, now I can move to channels. Please don't see it as a linear approach. Go faster where you can, of course. If you can learn something now on your revenue model or on your cost model or on the entire left side on certain partners you need to use in your specific business model, please do a certain experiment, run a certain experiment on that specific building block. So that's important, right? Go faster where you can. Don't see it as a linear approach, but also keep seeing it as an entire business model. That's basically it, right? All these building blocks are connected, and see it as an iterative approach. So what I mean by that, if you learn something, again, it could be happening this week, right? You can learn something new about your customer segment. It has impact on your value proposition. It has impact on your channels that you need to use. And of course, it will have impact on your revenue stream, and maybe even your market size. So keep approaching it as one business model. And see it as the entire right side, not only the right side, but of course your entire business model, but especially the right side of your entire business model is connected. So please keep seeing it and keep approaching it like that whenever you learn about your business model. So moving on to the topics of this week, like I said, on the left side of your business model, the key resources and key activities, you see them here on this slide. And it's basically the first step on how a business model comes together, right? Because in the end, the left side, so your key partners, key resources, key activities that you need to use, have impact on your cost structure, right? And they hopefully realize your right side of your business model canvas, so your value proposition and how you deliver it to certain customer segments. And when you're doing a good job, hopefully, the left side of your business model, of course, is smaller, especially in your revenue models, on your cost structure, than your right side. So that's basically how a business model comes together. So that's also why we call it the backstage and the front stage of your business model, right? Most people, especially in the beginning, the front stage of your business model, so the right side of your business model, because that's the most tangible. You can see it's the marketing, it's the promotion, it's the actual product, so it's a sexy thing of your business model. But actually, maybe even the left side of the backstage of your business model is even more important, because that's basically what makes your production even possible, makes your product or service even possible. Okay, so the two topics in your business model canvas for today, key activities and key resources. Basically, the questions that you want to answer when it comes to key activities is, what are the most important things the companies must do, or your company must do, to make the business model work? Resources, the main question is, what are the most important assets required to make the business model work, right? So it's the important things your company must do, versus what are the important assets or resources required to make the business model even work. So let's zoom into key resources first. Again, the question, what are the most important assets required to make the business model work? You can actually distinguish certain type of key resources in the business model. Not every business model or every startup needs to have all of these resources, But it's important to look at certain different categories. So let's start with the first key resources, which is, of course, financial resources, right? So basically, how are you getting your startup off the ground? Because it's so different for each type of product, service, or each type of startup, of course. There's a big difference, for instance, in starting with just a laptop and just a cloud service or cloud memory space, if that's enough for your specific business model. And it's a huge difference, for instance, if you want to manufacture, produce something, or even want to import it from another country. Right? And starting is one thing, of course, but as we discussed customer relationship and channels, keeping and growing customers also costs money. The specific channel has a certain cost structure, so it's really important to get that straight. So usually people start out with family, friends, angels, investors, and move on towards corporate partners, maybe even loans, other financial options. So when we talk about financial resources, you have a ton of financial resources, but really differ per company, per phase, per specific value proposition, what you need to use or what you can use, of course. So what is important, though, is to distinguish, okay, what are my financial resources in the starting phase? Do I need additional resources? And if yes, what for? But also try to fast forward and look to your growing or scaling phase, right? What are my financial resources then? What kind of financial resources do I need? What kind of categories are they? Are they more in the production side? Are they more in the marketing side? Whatever they may be, because then it has impact on the type of financial resources you can use. Later on in the Startup Launch class, we're going to talk about Startup Finance 101 a bit more. So we're going to talk about your financial structure and the different layers in your financial model. So if you have any more questions on, okay, what are the different type of financial resources, where can I reach out to them, we can always discuss that a bit in deeper depth. So moving on to the second resource for your business model, which is physical resources. You see them here. So when we talk about physical resources, we talk about the more obvious things people think about, especially starting up your company, of course, right? So we talk about company facilities, so maybe office space if you need any, location if you need any, or production facility if you need any, of course, right? But also when we talk about product and services, where are you getting the supply from, right? Especially when you're, for instance, in the import-export business. So let's say the supplier of pastilles, for instance, or the supplier of technology research or funding, maybe even, when I look at one of the companies in Startup Launch class, right? Where do you get the funding from? Or maybe where do we get the supply of top micro-influencers from? Especially because more and more companies and also startups in Startup Launch class have more of the platform business model. So where are you getting your supply from? So what you see here is sometimes really a tight link between the needed resources and key partners, of course. But it is important to keep in mind, though, that many physical resources are capital intensive, right? So what does it mean in terms of financing and starting up your business? What does it mean if you need certain supply from a physical resource? Where do I get the, do I need any money? Is it indeed capital intensive for my startup? Also, when I want to grow this startup of mine, this company of mine, and what does it mean for getting access to those physical resources? So moving on to the third key resource or a potential key resource in your business model, in your company, is intellectual resource, right? So let's call that the IQ of your company. So how to create it, how to keep it, and how to protect it, right? If I look at Startup Launch class, it is more the case for some companies than others. But even though it is important to really try to understand this third type of key resource in your company. Why is it important? It is the thing that makes sure your business model cannot be copied, or at least cannot be copied easily, right? When we talk about intellectual resource, when we talk about the IQ of your company, the knowledge of your company. So if you have anything proprietary in your company, think about it. And it could be an algorithm, it could be a certain way you set up contracts, it could be certain ways that you set up your value stream. What you see nowadays, though, is it's more about technology, of course. So the IQ is mostly based, focused on technology. But if you have anything proprietary, really think about it, right? Because you have several items. What you see here are more American examples, by the way, but you can think about how to protect it in terms of branding, in terms of your creative work, when you have a certain production secret or certain contracts or patents, right? So you have different options or different possibilities to actually protect your intellectual resource, but it is important to really zoom in and try to understand what is the, if it is the case, what is the intellectual resource in my company and how can I keep it and how can I protect it? So moving on to the fourth and the last key resource in your business model, of course, everyone has to do with it, and that's human resources, right? One of the key items in your business model when it comes to resources. So basically, we talk about people, right? And when we talk about people, we talk about two main items. First of all, we talk about qualified and talented team, so employees. Remember what Ronald of Stucom said in our work session, right? It is about finding people who are maybe even better than you are. But also a second item, and it's really important to express that, is, but also, how do you find mentors or teachers or coaches or advisors, right? And it is important, though, to distinguish them and really look at the differences between all of these mentors, teachers, coaches, advisors, etc. Because what is it that you want to learn something about a subject? So you need a teacher for that. Is it a certain skill that you want to learn? Let's say selling, is that your skill? Or let's say people management, is that your skill? So you need a mentor or a coach. Or is it a certain career advancement that you want to make? Or you want to advance your company's success, so you're looking more for a business advisor or a business mentor. So it is really important because, especially, you also see it here, of course, in Startup Launch Class, you will deal, and especially when the company grows and grows, you will deal with a growing number also of mentors, teachers, advisors, and coaches. So really try to distinguish them by looking at the differences, but also trying to be honest to yourself and to your team. What is it specifically that we want to learn, that we need to learn, and what is the best fit then in terms of a mentor or a teacher? The first thing, like I said, qualified team and qualified people, employees, hire people better than you, of course, right? So if you're a technology-centered business model, right? If technology is the core thing in your business model, do you have the winning development skills yourself? Or do you need to find them elsewhere? So you need to find qualified, talented employees, or could be interns or whatever, that can make that happen for you. If your business model is more sales-centered, right? So if it's really about hardcore selling your product and services, are you the sales professional, or do you also need additional people from the start to do that, to have that sales attitude? Could be just two examples: technology or sales. Could be different type of things. But try to be honest, assess your team and assess your startup. What are the type of people that I need from the start? Okay, so talking about key resources in your business model, let's take a look at a couple of examples of how different type of companies, young, old, startups, scale-ups, whatever, used key resources as an elevator in their, as a certain leverage in their business model, right? So Coca-Cola, of course, famous example. The brand, let's say that's an intellectual resource maybe, is their most important resource. If you compare it, for instance, to what you see on the right side, there is a picture of Henk Kolk, who's the chief architect, of ING, stating 1 or 2 years ago, you know what, we're actually not a bank anymore. We are a technology company, right? So what does it mean in terms of human resources, of the type of people you need to hire, or you need to hire from now on, or you want to hire? If you look at the number of development technology people ING uses now and the way they work, so the culture. So it has an impact on, had an impact on the key resources, of course. What you see below that is Palantir is one of the most valued startups on earth now. You can put it in the category of Uber, of Snapchat, whatever. And Palantir is it's actually just a big data algorithm artificial intelligence company, business to business. So they rely heavily on the most talented people when it comes to AI or artificial intelligence application, right? They hire rocket scientists and people like that. So if you look at their career page, for instance, then you get a really good look at what is their key resource. And on the left side, that is maybe interesting for one of the teams in Startup Launch Class that focus on travel. You see a screenshot of quite relatively new startup, heavily funded already, Lola Travel. It's founded by the former co-founder of Kayak, and it works as let's say also an artificial intelligence app. So it gives you instant access to a personal travel service for hotel, flights, whatever you need. So their connection to travel companies and hotels, etc., is a key resource, right? But also their artificial intelligence development power is really impressive and is a key resource for Lola Travel. So what you see here are just 4 examples of 4 really different type of companies, but also how they look at key resources and what kind of different type of key resources they use in their business model. So that being said about key resources, let's move on to the second topic of the business model for today, so key activities. So again, the main question there in key activities is what are the most important things the companies must do to make the business model work? So, and try to focus on your value proposition, right? So what does it mean? What kind of activities are key for our business? So basically, you can distinguish key activities to the following 3 categories you see on this slide here. So production, problem solving, usually we call it service, or maybe even platform/network key activity, right? So let's start with the first one. Production as a key activity, of course, it's straightforward, pretty straightforward. So that's the actual design or creation of the product or creation of your service, right? And everything else that follows before or after that. So the distribution, your marketing, your branding, etc. Is that a key activity for my business model? The second category in key activities is more when your company deals with problem solving or offers a service, right? So it solves individual problems uniquely. It could be business to business. It could be business to consumer. You see Lola Travel in the last example, right? It's more problem solving, but it is for customer consumers. So it could be the most straightforward examples are consultant agencies, right, or service firms. And there, as a key activity, of course, for yourself as a company, knowledge management and learning on a continuously manner is key, of course, for your business model. And it's so much different than when your company produces something, where the key activity is more on production, of course. And third category, when it comes to key activities in your business model, is what we call platform or /network. Like I said, more and more startups, you can also see it in Startup Launch Class, are dealing with this type of business model. So connecting A to B, how I always put it, pretty straightforward. Could be linking people, right? Like LinkedIn. Could be linking services, like Uber or Airbnb. So the activity could be production too, right? Or should be production too, the specific platform, although the one platform is maybe a bit more sophisticated than the other platform, right? But the key activity is actually creating and maintaining that specific relationship and that specific network, right? So creating both segments, creating segment A, creating segment B, right? So creating people who are looking for tickets and people who are offering tickets, if that's your business model. It is key to really try to understand these type of different key activities. So from production to problem solving to creating a platform, and what does it mean for your specific business model? So to make it a bit more concrete, let's look at one business model example on how you can also innovate on the, let's call it the left side, so the key resources and key activities of the business model and their business model canvas. So the example we want to talk about is Citizen M, which is a pretty new hotel chain in several places around the world. So their tagline is, right, we offer affordable luxury. That's our distinguishable, unique value proposition, right? So what you see here is a matrix they used on, okay, if we look at our business model and we look at our left side specifically, so our key resource and then our key activity, what is it specifically that we want to create on a newly manner or we want to raise? So that's actually more about the value proposition. But to do that, though, how can we innovate on the left side of our business model? So what could we or should we eliminate, or what should we reduce, right? Like pricing, we want to reduce pricing, but we want to create a more modern design, a more living room atmosphere. So they actually looked at 4 different blocks in their business model on how they could eliminate and reduce items on the one side. So innovate also on the key resource and activities, which led to the raise or creation of new items in their value proposition. So a few examples of how they did that. So they eliminate certain resources and activities, like I said. So they actually just deleted the kitchen. So they offer no kitchen anymore. But what you see there on the right bottom side of the slide is how they offer food to their customers right at this moment in all of the hotels of Citizen M, right? And they also offered a self-service check-in. So they eliminate certain human resources or human activities there. But they also provide certain new resources and activities, right? So like I said, you see a few pictures, examples of it here. So they create a more living room atmosphere. So it's more freedom for all the customers visiting Citizen M Hotel. And they have small but functional and well-designed rooms, what you see here. So maybe the square meters are a bit less than what you see in other certain hotel chains, but it's actually much better designed, what you see here in the Citizen M example. But providing that also asks for certain new resources and activities, of course, right? Especially if you want to keep your revenue model, especially your cost model, if you want to keep it under control, of course. So what you see here is the production facility of Citizen M. So their business model asks for that the rooms are more prefab when it comes to production, but also much more standardized. So you see it, especially on the right picture there, you can see it very well on how their rooms actually look. So it's more of like a plug and play model on how they can plug in new rooms, maybe even change it over time or upgrade rooms over time. And it has a certain impact, of course, a large impact on their, especially on their revenue model. So what they did, especially when you focus on, when you talk about key resources and key activities, so they heavily reduced labor, especially labor costs, and they were able to reduce construction costs and also reduce distribution costs. And it offered them the possibility to innovate on certain different items in their business model. So that being said, on 2 building blocks of your business model canvas for today, so the key resources and key activities, if you have any questions so far on these specific building blocks or how you should use it or create it or innovate it in your business model, like I said, please use the chat window to type in any questions you have. We have one question here. Could IQ also be items that make your model less copyable but not able to protect? So a combination of knowledge, brand, customer base, etc. combination. Well, yeah, as you see in the answer there, right? The certain combination is what it even makes it more unique, right? Not everything can be protected, for instance, by a patent. So it is actually a pretty good question. If you can combine certain items, whether it's your unique vision on marketing or whether you have a certain algorithm that you can protect to a certain level, if you have a certain combination there, please do. So excellent question there. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk to you about, and which is not a specific building block of your business model, is sales as an entrepreneur, right? So actually, we want to talk about sales, but specifically sales as an entrepreneur, because some of you have been doing it for a while, of course, and some of you are just starting out with the first sales or have certain leads, so are hopefully at the end of this course have their first sale. So that's why we thought let's talk about sales as an entrepreneur as an item for today. Because there's this thought, sometimes even a myth, that in entrepreneurship and when you're the founder of a startup or your team is a founding team of a startup, there's this thought that you need professional salespeople from the start in your team and for your startup, right? So it's actually a pretty huge trap to think, you know what, I'm the product guy, I'm the visionary, I'm the technology guy, and I need to hire, and I'm gonna hire professional salespeople from the start to actually sell my product to the specific consumers or specific businesses. And it's actually a pretty huge danger to think like that. Let me give you one example of one of the companies when I was a banker a few years ago. Companies was this founder guy. He had the company for over 4 or 5 years, and maybe even longer. And he is in the lighting business, right? Not lighting business. So he, when you, for instance, corporate events or TV shows, fashion events, stuff like that. He was the company that, or still is the company that manages all the professional lighting in the event or in the show. And he created this new type of product, new type of technology, which led to it was easier to manage all the lighting, but also you were able to scale up really your production. Well, not really important, but his thought was, you know what, I'm gonna hire 4 or 5 salespeople, professional salespeople, to really get the second product off the ground. And after maybe 4 or 5 months, he came to us, a colleague of mine and me, and he said, you know what, I've been working on this new product for 4 or 5 months. Actually, I have been selling it, trying to sell it with 5 professional salespeople, and they collectively sold for just under 2,000 euros in half a year. As you can imagine, knowing the average salary of a professional sales guy or woman, that's not a lot. So he came to us with, you know what, a bit bummed down. This product is not going to work. It's a wrong product. I can't sell it to the market. Maybe something wrong. It's a big failure. You know what? And now I have 5 new people on my team. Of course, it had impact on the revenue model, on the cost model. That's also why he came to us. This is not going to work. You know what? And we basically asked him, why aren't you doing the selling yourself then? Right? You were pretty successfully in the beginning when you just started your company. Why are you not doing it right now again? And let's see if it's not the product, maybe it's the selling, right? And because you as a founder, you know the product by heart. You know the best from everyone else in your team. And that's what he did. So he actually fired the 4 or 5 salespeople. And after a year, this specific product, which was in a different company, was sold to another bigger company even, because they really liked the product. And he was able to actually sell it week after week after week on his own to certain events and stuff like that. So basically what I want to tell you with this example is we think about selling as a profession, right? And it is. I mean, professional sales is, of course, a really difficult thing to do and is a profession. But professional salespeople actually follow a certain process, and you can see it as actually as a triangle, right? A really powerful triangle, and the salespeople are on top of that triangle. We have a slide of that. Let me just show it to you guys. Right, so professional salespeople are on top of that triangle. You see it here in the middle of the slide, and the triangle actually rests on a really heavily infrastructure, which is marketing, lead management, HR, promotion, right? Professional salespeople get certain flyers, get promotional videos. They even sometimes get a certain territory, so they know where to target on and who to target on, right? So they follow a certain process. And you know what? Actually, as an entrepreneur or as a startup founding team, the triangle turns upside down, right? So the triangle looks like that. And you as an entrepreneur are now on the top of the triangle, trying to balance your entire company, because you need to do finance, you need to do marketing, you need to talk to people, you need to clean the coffee pot, you need to go to startup launch class, you need to do all of these type of hundreds of things, and you keep running back and forth on top of the triangle, doing also your sales. So what you see there on your right side, right? So you are, as an entrepreneur, are now on top of the triangle, but the triangle turns upside down. So when we talk about sales specifically, what you need to do, what you need to think about is actually stretching the selling part, right? So the top part of the sales triangle, if how we put it here, and stretching it at both ends. What we mean by that, usually professional sales is a pretty straightforward process, right? They get a certain lead, they close the lead in their sales funnel or in a sales cycle, and that's basically it. And they move on to the next lead. So as an entrepreneur and as a founder, you need to stretch the triangle at both ends. Meaning, let's, for instance, zoom in on the first part of selling, right? Targeting. You need to do that yourself. So you need to ask yourself, why am I calling this lead? So basically, why am I calling this lead? Why am I not emailing or visiting this lead? Why am I focusing on this lead and not specifically also maybe on that other guy or woman within the company? So why am I targeting that specifically, right? But also about the following steps in your sales process, you actually need to do the selling yourself. So what is the best way to sell it, right? Is it to show a certain video? Is it to show it a certain prototype? Is it to show cases from other companies I sold to? What is the best process or the best steps in the actual sales process? But also the following steps, actually closing the lead, of course, but also after that, let's say qualifying. Am I putting the right amount of time with the right guy or woman, right? Am I talking or sitting across the table with the right guy within the company? If you're business to business, of course, right? So also try to remember there what Ronald of Stucom said, right? So especially in the beginning days, you have to really try to figure out this sales engine on who you need to target, who you need to focus on, who you're going to spend the time on sitting across the table to talk to and trying to sell your product and service, right? But also in the next step, let's call that sales analysis, right? How much time did I spend on it? How much money or did it cost? And what actually was the profit in it? Not maybe financially, but also in terms of, well, this 1 month process led to one specific sales, right? So also the sales analysis is something you need to do yourself or as a team, right? So that's what we call entrepreneurial selling. I really see it as a sales engine, right? That you need to tune all the time. Just like your business model and discovering and designing your business model, which is an iterative process. See entrepreneurial selling as actually pretty much the same, right? See it as an engine that you need to tune all the time, especially in the beginning days, right? So think about it from targeting all the way through selling and analysis. It is something you need to do yourself as a founding company, and the process itself, it's not straightforward. No one is going to tell you how that specific sales process for your specific company is going to look like. So it's really essential to also have an iterative mindset there as well. So that being said, on key resources, key activities, and sales as an entrepreneur, one other thing we would like to remind you of is that we've talked about certain experiments, also especially last week in the webinar, but also in the work session. We have a slide on that, of course. Let me just grab that. We already showed you this specific slide a couple of times, of course, right? So be really specific on your hypothesis you want to test. But the second item, experiments, we've been talking to a huge number of customers now, and qualitative interviews are still and will always be very valuable. But it is also time, I guess, for a lot of startups to try to think of certain other experiments as fast as possible, right? In your case, if it is possible to get a certain prototype online or show it to customers as soon as possible, try to do that, right? I mean, the more concrete you can be towards your customers, the more concrete they can be in giving you and providing you certain feedback. And of course, always try to keep this loop in mind. Like I said, try to use, whenever valuable and whenever useful, of course, certain types of experiments. Could be a landing page, could be trying to create just a paper prototype, trying to do research on competitive companies who were there in the past or still out here, what is it that they're using? Try to maybe have like a storyboard in front of your customers with these products versus your own product. What is it that they like? What is it that they don't like? So try to be creative in those experiments. And again, of course, if you need any help with that, always we're always here for you to reach out to. So as a closing for this webinar for today, the startups in Startup Launch Class who are watching this webinar live or later on YouTube, for this Friday, of course, try to reflect on the learnings of Get Out of the Building you have done last week, which was a pretty amazing experience, I've heard. We have a guest speaker speak app, which will tell you a lot on how he grew and founded his company. And we are certain that it's a pretty valuable guest lecture. Of course, we're going to work on our business model. That being said, we are in week 6, so we are actually trying to, you hopefully are actually trying to take really next steps on reaching your specific goal. And we also like to ask Sponsor Meter, one of the startups, of course, in Startup Launch Class, to present their learnings and their specific challenges and really use the power of the crowd of all the startups and all the coaches to really help them take the next step. All the other viewers, if you have any questions during the week, of course, on key resources, on key activities, maybe even on one of the building blocks we have been discussing in the last couple of weeks, always happy to help, of course. Try to reach out to us or to our team. We have no questions. I'm just looking at the chat fenster for a second. We have no questions for today. So thanks for watching again. Hopefully see you next week or see you later this week, all the participants of Startup Launch Class. Thanks for watching, and from Milan, buongiorno and arrivederci.